Hallo agus fáilte odmh go lesson a chuig díag, allt and allt. Hello and welcome to lesson 15, allt and allt. In this lesson, we're going to look at masculine words and the article that is used with them. So that's the word the definite article. And this PDF is available via the link in the comment in the description below the video. So we'll look at masculine words and the article they take in the nominative case, so that's in the basic form of the noun, and then also look at the dative case when a preposition is acting on the noun. So when we've been introduced to new vocabulary so far in the course, the gender of the noun and the definite article the has been included. So here's some examples of words we've seen introduced in the course. Purple box is or nouns. We have here, which is horse or a horse. You'll see noted that it's masculine, and we've also included the article, so to say the horse and teach. Coo, dog or a dog, the dog and coo. Shinnach, a fox, fox, the fox and shinnach. Mahan, bear or a bear, but the bear, am mahan. Borscht, table or a table, but the table, am borscht. Pian, pen, the pen, am pian. So you can see that there's a number of forms here that the word the is taking in Gaelic. It's not just like in English, always the same. So a masculine noun starting with a vowel and teach. We can see from these examples that a masculine noun starting in either a C or an S, and coo and shinnach, but masculine nouns starting in M, B, or P, we're seeing this change to am. So we'll look at the rules for that in this lesson. So, and this is very important in Gaelic, because all nouns have a gender, and this affects how we use them in a sentence. So we can see that the word the changes, and that changes in the different cases. Gaelic is one of many European languages to have a case system, and this means that nouns and their article change to show their relationship to other words, what's been said about them. And this kind of shows that something's been done to them, or that they have possession of each other, or things like that. So there are 4 cases in Gaelic. We've already seen the vocative case come up, which is how we address people directly. So if we were speaking to somebody called Seamus, which is the Gaelic for James, Seamus, if we were to shout to Seamus, we would say, a Hamish, Seamus, a Hamish. And we can see that that's where we get the English name Hamish. It's actually the vocative of the Gaelic name Seamus. So that kind of exists of itself, the vocative case. You only use it when you're calling on somebody. So it typically is only used with people's names, although you can use it with nouns such as like cow or dog if you wanted to shout on an animal. But that can exist by itself. The cases that we're interested in terms of using the language, making sentences, constructing grammatical sentences, the nominative case is the standard nouns we've seen. So these nouns are all in the nominative case. This is basically also known as the naming case. These words are just the words we use to describe a horse or the horse, the dog, etc., to give something a name. So amborged and coo. So the last two cases in Gaelic are the dative case and the genitive case. And in this lesson, we'll look at how masculine nouns change from the nominative to the dative case. As noted, Gaelic is one of many languages that has a case system. And there's only the 4 in Gaelic, so it could be an awful lot worse. Some European languages, like Hungarian, have up to 21 cases. So there is, it is something that is typical in European languages. So dative case, genitive case, we'll look at in this lesson. In fact, just the nominative and the dative. We'll leave the genitive to later on. So the rules for masculine nouns in the nominative case, as we've seen, if they start with a B, F, M, P, and this is what you sometimes hear, big fat mother pig or big fat member of parliament, whichever you prefer, B, F, M, P. These are labial sounds. You make them by putting your lips together. B, F, M, P. These all take the definite article am. So borscht, am borscht. Barscht, am barscht. Pjaun, am pjaun. Pepeth, am pepeth. Man, am man. Monarch, am monarch. Fesker, am fesker. Falt, am falt. And the reason for that M is basically you bring your lips together to make these labial sounds, B, F, M, P. So the sound that you make there, bringing the you bring your lips together, and that kind of rolls into borscht, borscht. Whereas the N is a hard sound, so basically they don't sit together as well. That's basically all that's happened there, is that this M's about running these sounds together and the position of your lips as you make them. So B, F, M, P, am. The next rule for masculine nominative is that with a vowel, they take a T before. And this T doesn't stand on its own, so it's not an, t, ech. It kind of runs together, and the T is attached to the start of the word. So people pronounce that, and it can be more or less pronounced in speech. Some people make it more obvious than others. So ech and jach, Ian and Ian. That's one to note, this EU sound. We'll see that appearing in various words in Gaelic, and it's often pronounced as if it's an IA, so Ian, Ian. There's a story behind that, which I'll maybe put a link to in the comments below the video, but you just have to learn the sound of some of these words. Ian here for a bird, and Ian, the bird. Ushke, we've all seen this, and Ushke, the water, also rain, and Ushke, Ushke and Ushke. Oerlar is a floor, and Doorlar, the floor, and Oerlar. The name of this lesson, allt and allt. As you'll see at the top of the page, allt and allt. That's a play on the Gaelic for article. Allt with one L is the article, and allt, the stream, allt and allt, in the stream, the T drops, which we'll see, and allt. Aran, bread, and haran. iasc, fish and iasc, fish, the fish. Oren, song and Oren, the song. And then for all other words, it's just an, and there's no lenition or anything with these masculine nouns. So anything other than BFMP or a vowel, and coo, and cat, and shinnach, and shalmer, and chenye, and dan, and lior, and liaun. So all the rest of the letters, and then the word. So we'll see a few examples of these in the dative case over the page. So one to look at, and shalmer, the room. So the dative case, which we're going to look at here, tells us that something is interacting with the noun in some way. So in English, there's no change, the table versus on the table. But in Gaelic, this distinction is made. So am borged, id evorged, the table, on the table. Other languages such as German and Russian, and as I mentioned, Hungarian and Polish and various languages have cases, as does or did Latin. English did used to have cases in certain contexts. I'm not an expert on the development of the English language, but I believe this is still shown in the various pronouns we have: I, me, my, mine, how they change. And nouns in English also tell us about plural and possession. So even native English speakers will be going wrong with this, but chair, one chair, chairs, so more than one chair. Chairs, with the apostrophe here, is something that belongs to a chair. Chairs, with apostrophe here, is something that belongs to more than one chair. So that is something, as I say, that even native speakers are not really au fait with, as they should be. But basically, there are various ways that nouns change their form, which tell us what they're doing in a sentence, tell us about something, the grammar, the possession. And possession is another form, another way to describe the genitive case. It indicates possession of something. So prepositions, that's what's giving us the dative case. Prepositions are words like these ones we've seen before: in, on, at, with, from. So they tell us about where something is. Alnan, we saw as in. Alnan, id, on, id. Ik, at, ik. Le, with or by, le. A, from or out of. So we've seen these introduced already in the course. One thing to point out is this dative case that we're about to look at only applies when we have the definite article. For masculine nouns, definitely. For feminine nouns, these days, that would also be true. So if we wanted to say on a table, it would just be id borged. We only go to evorged when it's on the table and the article is present. So we could have an borged in a table, if that was possible. Id borged, ik borged, le borged, a borged, if that made any sense. So this dative change only occurs when we have the definite article. So let's have a look at how these interact with the masculine nouns which we've seen. So now these purple boxes have changed to a kind of darker purple, a dark blue. These are all in the dative case now. So we see the basic prepositions we've looked at: aln, id, ik, le, and a. And some of these do change when they come into contact with the article, which we saw talking about places where we were from, we had ko as a hau, hami as Anjulan Skianach, or hami a Glasachu. So when it's the Isle of Skye, it was as Anjulan Skianach. And when it was from Glasgow with no article, it was a Glasachu. So here we see how the basic prepositions are changing just because they're next to the article. Then we also see how the nouns themselves have changed. So in the column that was previously B, F, M, F, and P, we see now that actually F is doing its own thing. It takes AN and then FH, the F-lenites. B, M, P, it's A apostrophe plus an H, which as we'll see is the same for C and G now. So C and G have joined this group. Previously we had am fesker. Now we have ans and yesker. Ans and yesker. And remember FH is silent, so we say that ans and yesker, as if it starts with the E rather than the FH. The FH drops. Borst we had, and we also saw on the table ed evorst. We had mahan, the bear, man. Ig evan, at the bear. We saw piaun, the pen, now becomes lish efiaun. So le becomes lish when we're talking about something with the article, with the lish efiaun. Same we add an S to the a. So if it was out of or from the paper, as efepith, am pepith, as efepith. So the column we saw with vowels, masculine nouns starting with a vowel, previously we had a T before them. So what happens in the dative case is that T disappears. And in the lesson we saw again on place names, we were talking about ounce or as a place. We noted that Anjulan Skianach, so Ilin for island, is masculine, starts with an E, starts with a vowel. So the Isle of Skye would be Anjulan Skianach with a T. But when we say we're from the Isle of Skye, we're as Anjulan Skianach. The T drops away. So the same thing happens here. We had allt, ounce, allt, anjach, ed, anjach, antaren, ig, anaren, anhiask, lish, anhiask, andishke, as, anishke. And we should all be familiar with andishke, ha andishke alm. It's raining, there is rain. And with all these grammar rules, it's good to see the pattern as what of what is happening and to understand, the rules. But the best way is always to think of an example. So I would recommend using barged, because we talk about table a lot. It represents BFMP. And then think of andishke, because we talk about the rain so often, ha andishke aln, but hami ounce anishke. So if you remember examples like that, you can then apply them to other words. Antishke, ha antishke aln, hami ounce anishke. And then think of ambarged, edavarged. And if you just learn that one example in the nominative, dative, and then genitive, when we are introduced to that, you can apply that example to other words in that category. So that's the best way, is to learn one example off by heart and then apply that to other words of the same gender with the same initial letter. So, Antishke is a good one. Hantishke aun, Hani aun sanishke. So the last column here, we can see there's a number of things happening. C and G, as I noted, have moved to doing the same thing as B and P. So we have an gleaun, the glen previously, ig eglaun, at the glen. And before we had an coo, the dog, an coo. If we're walking with the dog, lish echu. So Lenites, A apostrophe, lish echu. And words that start with SL, SN, or SR, or S plus a vowel, they now take a T. So what makes L, N, and R stand out? How do we remember that? They are the three letters that don't take an H. So we never write an H after the L, N, or R. So where there's an S in front of those, they take a T. L, N, and R. We need to remember L, N, and R in Gaelic anyway, that they don't take clinician in writing. So it's those three plus S and a vowel becomes ante. So as I noted, an shomer, the room, and shomer. If we're in the room, ounce and chomer, ounce and chomer. And here the T is basically taking the place of the S. We can't say ante shomer. The S just drops and we say the word as if it starts with the T, and chomer. And then all other words in this category just remain AN, no change. So words like chenye, anchenye, id and chenye, no change. Lior and lior, as and lior. So that L is slightly less soft. So and lior, as and lior. Cachivel. So one way to look at to practice these is to ask where something is, and then you'll need to describe it using prepositions. So cachivel, yet, cachivel and yach. Where is something or someone or a noun? So again, we've got a list of nouns here, starting with B, F, M, P, starting with a vowel, or starting with any other letter. So these are all, again, back to purple boxes, back to the nominative case. So we'll need to use the rules we've just seen to use these nouns in sentences and describe where people or things are in the pictures. So just to go through these nouns, again, some of them we've seen already: amborged, ambus, and that's one to watch pronunciation-wise. Learners tend to want to pronounce that with some kind of accent. There is another word in Gaelic, bus, but that means like your mouth, or your kind of, can mean your demeanor. So ha bus id would be somebody's in a bad mood, and bus for the bus, and bus. Bodach, the old man, bodach. Poche is a Gaelic word for bag. You can have bag in some other words as well, but poche. No pre-aspiration between the poche before the C there. So not just poche, it's poche. post ar, am post ar, the airport. Plana, am plana, plana. So that's a word for an aeroplane. Plane, we'll see here, you can also say eachelin. And both of these words are used, and it's not exclusive that somebody always uses plana and somebody always uses eachelin. You can mix and match. You will hear both. And plana. So pochke, we saw. Here, am pochke droma, the rucksack. And droma is the genitive case of dream, which is a back. And we see that in Scottish place names a lot. One example being Tindrum, Tay, and Taindroma. So that's droma and pochke droma. And then fair, a man, fair, am fair. Masculine words with a vowel, again we saw in Jach, we saw in Hien, we saw in Dishke, and Hichelin for the aeroplane, and Hichelin, and allt, and Haran, Diesk, I guess Naren we saw previously. And Ku, the dog, and Rad, the road, and Rad, and Tay, the house, and Togelach, the building, and Togelach, and Traine, the train, and Traine, and Roher, the bike, and Roher, and Car, the car, and Car, and the beach, and Cladach. Cladach is typically a stony beach rather than a sandy beach, but for the purpose of using a masculine noun, we'll refer to this beach here as an Cladach. So, as always with the games, you can pause these and have a go yourself, and then listen to my answers. So we're asking catch evel, and then the person in the picture or the dog or whatever is catch evel. Catch Elliot, and then having to explain. So where is the man? The man is in the car on the road in the town. So Balle, a town begins with a B, it would be am Balle. So we can go through and describe these, just giving a list of nouns in either the nominative or the dative case. So, Catcheville and Farshaw. Where is this man? Catcheville and Farshaw. So I said the man is in the car on the road in the town. So in Gaelic, ha am Farshaw, an sa char, iad an rad, ans evalle. So am Farshaw, just nominative am Farshaw, ans e char. So a apostrophe in lenition for car, e char, and then the car is id and rad. So rad, road, no change there. So ha and car, id and rad. And then where's the road? Ha and rad, ans evalle, in the town. Am balle, ans evalle. Ham fair, show, ans a char, ir and rad, ans evalle. Catch you fair show maha. Ham fair show, id of us. Ham fair show, id of us. He's on the bus, or it could be a train. So, ha am fair show, id and traine. So there'll be no change for train. Starts with a T, and traine, ha am fair show, id and traine. Catch you fair show maha. Ham fer seo an san teamid. Ham fer seo an san teamid an san togalach. So the building and togalach starts with a T, so no change. Ham fer seo an san teamid an san togalach. And seomid, remember, and seomid an san teamid. Catche fel an cú. Ha an cú an sa char an rad. The dog is in the car on the road. So char an rad. So catche fel an níon seo. Where's this girl? Ha níon seo an sa char. So again, getting a lot of use out of car here. And car ans char. Show again, bodach. Here's an old man. Catche fel an bodach. Han bodach an roher, an rad, an savalla. So roher, like rad, starts with an R, so there's nothing we can do. It's just an roher. Ha an bodach an roher, an rad, an savalla. So an balla the town again, an savalla. Catch fel níon seo. So the Gaelic for bed we have seen before, lepi, which is feminine, so we'll see it again in the next lesson. But because it starts with an L, there's no change to the article, so it's just an lepi. Catche fel níon seo. Ha níon seo an lepi an san teamid. In the room again. And ha an seomid seo an san tae. So ha níon seo an lepi an san teamid an san tae. Jamie an fer seo. What about this man? Catche fel essen. Catche fel an fer seo. Ha an fer seo ans forst ad. An porst ad ans forst ad. Ha an Plana seo ans forst ad cutteach. Bodach ille, another old man, bodach. This time we have pochgedroma and pochgedroma. So what if we say catche fel an pochgedroma? Where is the backpack? Ha an pochgedroma iddo vodach an roher, an rad an savalla. So bodach ha an pochgedroma iddo vodach an roher, an rad an savalla. Catche fel an boranach seo. Boranach, women, an boranach. And you'll notice there I'm saying am boranach. So despite a woman being feminine, the word am boranach is masculine. So a good example that largely the gender of nouns and the gender of people genetically or biologically are not necessarily connected. They're two separate concepts, really. Gender of nouns, grammatical gender. So am boranach, ha am boranach, we'll say le, with ha am boranach, lish and roher, id chlatach. So an chlatach, the beach, ha am boranach, lish and roher, id chlatach. So a apostrophe ch, an chlatach, id chlatach. So, Sinjala show in this picture. Show Misha. This is me. Show Misha. So, Kachivelmi. She allt show. This is a stream. She allt show. And allt the stream. Ha Misha ounce and allt in the stream. Ha me ounce and allt. Show again balach. Balach, a boy. Balach, which is masculine, so balach. Kachivel and balach. Han balach ide flena, if he's in the plane. Han balach ide flena. Or if you want to use an nichelin, han balach as an nichelin. I think there we use either air or ounce. Ounce of flena, ounce nichelin. Probably better to say ounce nichelin in the plane. I guess and show computer again. Here we have a computer. Kachivel and computed. Ha and computed. Idavorst. Ounce and chalmud. So amborst and chalmud. Ha and computed. Idavorst. Ounce and chalmud. Kachivel and fair show. Ha and fair show. Lishechu. Idanushke. And we could refer to this as a barged, this paddleboard he's got here. So barged. Ha and fair show lishechu ide varged ide nushke. This man with the dog is on the board on the board on the water. So barged can either mean the table or literally the board. We see that with barged na Gaelic kitchach. So barged na Gaelic is the Gaelic board, and that sense of board is like a board of directors. So the word barged can either mean a table, a board, as in something you stand on, a board of wood, or it can also mean, like in English, a board of directors. So ha fair show lishechu ide varged ide nushke. Ka chivel a nian show. Where is this woman? Where is this girl? Ka chivel a nian show. Han nian show ansen chalmud. Ansen tokalach. Looks like it's higher than a house, so ansen tokalach. Shoakin poch gedroma ille. So another backpack. Poch gedroma ille. And here we have fair, a man, fair. So ka chivel an poch gedroma. Ha an poch gedroma ille nyer lishechu ir an rad an savala. So there's a good string of masculine nouns. Am, fair. So if we remember back to the rules we saw with F, because FH, when that lenites, the FH becomes silent. So essentially, grammatically speaking, we have a word starting with a vowel then. If FH becomes silent, we have EAR is the word, ed. So that means that this behaves basically like it starts with a vowel. So an yet. Ha an poch gedroma iddyn yet lishechu ir an rad an savala in the town. So hopefully you had a go at practicing those, and just have a think whenever you're see your mug of tea on the table, catch wel een mugge high the vorst. You can describe where things are to practice using nouns in the dative case and tushel towerstach. So me Erik ha lastly we have a conversation. So again, I'll read through this and then we can go through it line by line. And when we do that, you can pause after me as I'm reading through this and repeat the lines to practice them. And then we'll go through and translate them. And if you have a go at translating them first, then I'll give the answer. You can pause the video as necessary. So, show again. Flori agus erchi. Shinu erchi a charage. Catch and row in dew. Hi a lorry. She la iontach a hound. Fami a snav and san allt. Sheg a jedaf. Jay and halt ashin. Evelyn Sigleon show. Ha, hand halt an Sigleon show. Diedoch jich minnagen as a vada show. Hami yaloch in an alt shin. An roi fuud an sanishke. Hami a kretchen gan big an dushke. Haast began fuud egen aum show. Van dushke began fuud. Ach la chop la fami tolletje. Catch and row heen in Jew. Va misje is stay in zijn tui, agus ag opid aan zijn kitchen. Nachel offish agad aan zijn jomid, je. Va ach chud mi en computed akem eda vorst sy kitchen. Gleva, be misje ag opid ag borst zijn jomid, je haast. So new words in bold, we had iontach. So the G in NG is very often silent in Gaelic, so iontach, iontach. So this NG is silent, iontach, iontach, wonderful. Yawach, knowledgeable, yawach. And we use that to say hami yawach id, whatever it is that we have knowledge of. You can use that of people too. So hami yawach id would be I know him. Hami yawach oze, I know her. So you can use hami yawach id. Offish is a Gaelic spelling of office. Shomid suye, we saw shomid in this lesson, shomer suye, sitting room. So hopefully you had to go at pronouncing those sentences, reading them out. Shinu erchi a charage, catch and row u and Jew. So what do we mean here? Shinu erchi. So it's yourself or something. Archie, friend, and friend is in the vocative case there, so an carriage, a carriage. It's yourself, Archie, friend, catch, row and you, where you today. And then Archie responds, hi, Laurie, she la iontach a helm, fami a snav and san allt. So, hi, how do you spell that in English? Hey, Florrie. Don't know how to spell that in English either. I'll just leave it as Florrie. So we'll see in Gaelic, Flori is becoming Ilari, leniting because it's again invocative. She la iantach a haun. It's a wonderful day. Vami snavans an allt. I was swimming in the stream. So we'll see next week if it was a river he was swimming in. River is feminine, so we'll see that in the next lesson. She gejerav. So what's that? She gejerav. Well, Archie said she la iantach a haun, and Florrie's responding she gejerav. It is indeed. J and alt a hashin. So we can see ans and alt, J and alt a hashin. What stream is that? Evele ans egliaun shall. Evel is it. Ans egliaun shall. In this glen. Ha, yes. Ha and alt. So again, alt this time in the nominative. Ha and alt. Ans egliaun shall. So ha and alt, the stream is in this glen. Gidach 10 minuten as a valley show. Just 10 minutes out of this town. From this town, but in a sense, out of this town. Ah, Hamiolach is an alt shin. Hamiolach, I know that stream. Hamiolach is an alt shin. I know a food ans anishke. Was it cold in the water? Hami a kretchen gum be and dishke hast becken food ag an alm show. So hami a kretchen gum be and dishke hast. So hami a kretchen I believe, literally I am believing, but believe. You'll see that my English spelling is atrocious. En roll I food in snishke. Hami a kretchen gum be and dishke hast becken food. I believe that the water will be a bit back and forth, a bit cold still. And then ig an alm shall. So alm is time, masculine noun, and starts with a vowel. So if it was the time and alm with a T and alm, but ig an alm shall at this time. Va and hushke back and forth. So the water was a bit cold. La chobla fami talitje. But on a day, la chobla, so warm vami talitje. I was happy. Cat and o you. So where were you yourself today? Or just where were you today? in English you can just stress. Vamishe ystau ans yn tai agus y gobydd ans the kitchen. So I was inside in the house and working in the kitchen. So Antai, ans antai, no change, and kitchen, the kitchen, masculine, ans a kitchen. So just a masculine that starts with a C. So an kitchen becomes ans a kitchen. Nachel office agad ans an chama suya. Nachel office agad. Don't you have an office in the sitting room? Sometimes you'll see an H put on suya here in the dative case. You see both done ans an chama with huya or ans an chama suya. Va, and just to explain that that's because there's two nouns linked together, so sometimes the second one's treated as behaving, also joining the first noun in the dative case, as it were. Va ach chud mi yn computed agam edd evorst sa kitchen. So nachel office agad, so va was, so I did have. Ach, but chud mi yn computer agam edd evorst sa kitchen, but I put, so we've not seen chud like that yet, but I put and computer agam, my computer, edd evorst sa kitchen, on the table in the kitchen. So here we can see Vami Agopith ounce a kitchen can be shortened to just sa kitchen. And when it's ounce a, there's an apostrophe. And when it's just sa, no apostrophe, just sa kitchen. So that's just, you can choose to shorten in both writing and speech. Gleva, very good, we all know that by now. Bimishe Agopith ig barged. So there's an example of a dative but without the article, so no change, it's just barged, ig barged, at a table. Bimishe Agopith ig barged san chomad suya hast. So, and this be here will be, this is habitual. Bimishe Agopith ig barged san chomad suya hast. So it would be the equivalent in English of I work. Be Misha Agopith. I work. I am working habitually. I work at a table in the sitting room. Still. And obviously we can put in the still in a different place that makes more sense. It would probably go all the way back here in English. I still work. I still work at a table in the sitting room. Gleva, be Misha Gopith ig bars and Homer suit you hast. I guess Shine or something lesson show. As I said earlier, we'll be looking at feminine nouns in the next lesson, and we'll see the similarities between these. So when we're looking at this table here, it seems like there's quite a lot changed. But in the next lesson with the feminine nouns, we'll see that basically this system here is the exact same as the feminine feminine system for nominative nouns, so just the regular system for feminine nouns, and that doesn't change with feminine nouns in the dative. So it seems like there's a lot going on, but in actual fact, as we'll see in the next lesson, there's essentially two systems here at play. One is the masculine nominative case, and then there's another system which covers the masculine dative case, as well as the feminine nominative case and the feminine dative case. So there's two systems. The masculine one here is fairly easy because it's basically masculine with a vowel takes ante, masculine with BF, MP takes am, and then everything else is an. So that system's fairly straightforward. There's not a lot to it in terms of rules. This system, there's a wee bit more going on, so you have to learn that. But the good thing is it applies to three of the case situations. So it's not as onerous a task as it may seem at first. You get very familiar with these changes because they happen so often. So we'll pick this back up in the next lesson and see how the feminine nouns behave. So tack leif agus beannach leif in draste.